All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Center for Mediation and Conciliation, Bombay, and Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution, RGNUL, we welcome you all to the fourth session of our webinar series titled A Career in ADR and Insider. Aftermath of the pandemic have shifted us into online mode. The alternative dispute resolution too has shifted and been rechristened into online dispute resolution. To help us understand what are the intricacies of ODR, Ms. Namita Shah, co-founder of Presolve, is amongst us to shed some light on it. We are elated to have you with us today, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining this session. And now with this, my co-moderator, Ms. Diksha, would like to just give a brief introduction about the work profile of Ms. Namita, if she may.
Yeah, I'd like to continue further. So Ms. Namita is graduate of HR College of Commerce and Economics and Law College, Mumbai. Ms. Namita Shah began her professional career as a lawyer with EY, a gold medalist in chartered accountancy, member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. She's an expert in the field of chartered accountancy and law. She's also featured in the top 60 in the Women Transforming India list 2018, an initiative of the Government of India. And she's also been part of movements such as VEE Foundation, Women Entrepreneurship and Empowerment, Action for India, AGNI, Mahita Cedibus Program. Presently, she is the co-founder of the Legal Tech Asia and Presolve 360. She has infused technology in law to make dispute resolution cheaper, faster, and better. These are just few of her many accomplishments, and we are grateful to have her with us for our today's session. We can think of no other person to discuss about ODR than herself. And without wasting any more time, we welcome her to the fourth session of our web series on career in ADR. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachit, for the warm welcome and Diksha for the warm introduction. Just a small thing, I started my career in the CA field with Ernst & Young, and then I pursued law as well. But thank you so much. And I'm really excited to talk about my journey, learnings along the way, and of course, explore what career options are now available for young law graduates. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shah. It is commendable to see the efforts you have made towards introducing the concept of cost effectiveness to alternative dispute resolution. I believe that the individuals who are aware of your work would be appreciative of the efforts undertaken to fill this glaring void in the legal system at the moment. So, without wasting any time, if you had to describe what you do to help a common man who has been visiting the court for, say, last 30 years with no hope of attaining justice, how would you describe your work and the services you may be able to provide through the platform?
Sure. Okay, let me talk about this with a way of an example that everybody can understand. Let's say today you order a laptop from an e-commerce company. You're doing the entire process online. You get a parcel, and it turns out when you open it, that there's actually a brick instead of a laptop. What happens then? You've already made the payment of a huge amount to get that laptop. You rightfully should be getting a laptop. You raise a complaint with that particular e-commerce company. Let's say that doesn't get resolved at that stage, and they say that this is not our fault, something happened along the way, or there's no proof of all of that, and we don't know what happened. They just put their hands up. What happened? And let's say the particular seller on that particular e-commerce company also does not give you a refund, does not replace it, nothing happens. And he says he actually dispatched a laptop. You are stuck with a brick and you're stuck with a loss. Your working capital is already gone because you've already made the payment. You do have an option of going to the consumer court. On an average, it may take about 3.5 years. You have other options also of going to different such forums. Eventually, you may even escalate it to different courts in the country, and about 4 or 5 years would pass by, and you'd still be just roaming different courts and finding solutions for that. And that's it. Your money is blocked. You don't know what to do. You still have to pay court fees. If at all you engage a lawyer, you have to pay lawyer fees. And there is no resolution in sight, not in the near future at least. You may get a resolution maybe after 3 years, 5 years, something like that, if at all. This is actually the fate of, there are over 3 million disputants in the country today, looking at just the civil dispute arena. And this is what actually happens. Here I'm just talking of a laptop. But let's say you have a small business and you have to recover 5 lakh rupees. On an average, it will take you about 13 years. And these are official government stats that have been released for any case to be disposed of through the court machinery. As of date, there are over 4 crore such cases already pending. And just to resolve those cases, it is going to take somewhere about 324 years. Now, on top of that, over 40,000 cases are added every single day in Indian courts, and you are one amongst those trying to fight for justice or fight for a resolution. All in all, the entire process is going to be rendered ineffective for you. That is the problem that we are trying to solve. What we've done is we've explored the entire alternative dispute resolution space. These are mechanisms that the law itself provides for disputes to be resolved without having to go to court. That means completely without litigating and using completely different alternative mechanisms. Now, one may ask, what are these alternative mechanisms? We all know that, okay, if there is a dispute, we can all go to a lawyer and go to court. That is one way. There are other ways, mainly if I have to bifurcate them, they are arbitration, mediation, and negotiation. So if I just, briefly talk about the three of them, when it comes to arbitration, it's nothing but similar to a private court. So how you would go to a court, there would be a judge, he would listen to both sides of the story, and then he would give a judgment, which would then be applicable and binding to both parties. That is exactly what arbitration is, but just in a private setting, where instead of a judge, there is an arbitrator. You say your side of the story, the other party may say their side of the story. The arbitrator sees all documents, other evidences, all the other aspects, and gives an outcome, which is then binding to both parties. And the outcome that the arbitrator gives has the same legal validation as the outcome that a judge would give. This is as per the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of India. Now coming to mediation. Mediation is more informal in nature, where there are two disputing parties or more, and then there is a neutral third party who assists both parties to come to a common ground which both parties are okay to accept. So, somewhere they meet along the way and then they accept a solution if it is acceptable to both of them, which means it's voluntary. So you may or may not participate in a mediation and it is informal. There is no hard and fast procedure of law that you need to follow. It is party centric. And negotiation is, how we negotiate in our everyday lives with our family members, with our teachers, with our friends. That is again used as a technique to resolve disputes. All of this, majorly, there are a few others and there's a combination of these as well. But to simply put it, these are different mechanisms that are available to parties to resolve the dispute without having to go to court. So we specialize in alternative dispute resolution. All of this comes under the umbrella of ADR, as it is called. And our specialization is that we do it completely online. Hence, it is called ODR, which is online dispute resolution. So when any party wants to resolve a dispute in the civil space without having to go to court and wants to do it completely online, that's where Resolve 360 comes into the picture. So whether you talk of arbitrations, mediations, negotiations, a combination of them, we do all of these things completely digitally. So the idea is that if you can order a laptop in a few minutes, you should also be able to resolve a dispute in a few minutes using the same phone or the same device that you use. And that's what we want to do in simplified terms when it comes to dispute resolution.
Thank you. That's a wonderful explanation to the like the way you've laid the foundation for this session and told the entire structure of or the definition of online dispute resolution and made all the people familiarized with the concept. So after hearing you, is it safe to say that bringing ADR into the online virtue is online dispute resolution?
In a sense of it, yes. When it comes to ADR, there is doing it physically or doing it digitally are just modes of doing them. Ultimately, all of this is alternative dispute resolution. It's like the court, there's nowhere it is written that you need to physically go to court or you need to log into the e-court system and then resolve your dispute. Similarly, for ADR also, there is an option of doing it physically, there's an option of doing it digitally, which are just mechanisms of doing these proceedings. So what we do is ADR only, it's just that we are using technology to do it. So it is a branch of ADR itself.
Correct. Thank you so much, Ms. Namita. Moving on, like there is the common question that would come when we talk about ODR is that, do you think India as a nation serves the right market for the services which it provide, considering the idea that there is an inherent anxiety associated when the word online gets attached to any particular activity. Although I believe that we have seen that the recent reports have shown that 40% of all the digital payments in the world are now being happening from India. So, but do you think like India is the correct market for ODR?
Okay, let me talk about this in different parts. This is a very interesting question because we have been asked this since the day we started. It's technology and it's India. Do you think people of India will be able to use technology, etc.? The maximum number of WhatsApp users are in India. The maximum number of YouTube users are in India. The maximum number of digital payment options are in India. The maximum number of food orders in a day have been done in India. And all of this is not only restricted to metros. The more analysis that you do, all of this, the activity has boomed in tier 2 and 3 cities. That is number one. You just see the number of people that have smartphones today. All you need is just that phone. The number of people who have access to internet today, thanks to cheaper data plans. India has the cheapest data plan across the world. That is one thing that I want to emphasize on, that Indians have embraced technology. And how? I do completely agree that there is still a part of India that does not have access, but there is a huge and a much bigger part that has access. And those who have access should have the option of exploring technology to do their work and make their lives easier. And of course, it is an initiative of the government, of the citizens, everybody together to ensure that everybody can access the internet. And that is happening. It is growing. That is when it comes to technology. But let me talk about another thing when I compare it to law. People say that, will somebody have access to a internet connection? Will somebody have access to phone? Will they understand how to use technology? Let me ask you a simple question. How many people in India do you think have access to court? Today, a high court is only one per state. Somebody who lives in a rural area or even a tier 2 city away from the court has to travel at every single hearing just to hear another date and go back. How many of them actually have access to lawyers? When you compare to all of these things, Indians have far more access to technology than they have to law, to legal services or legal aid. And that is where technology can be used to help these people. That is what you compare it with. Nobody thought that India would become a fintech hub. Today it is. Today, if you even go to a small shop in a tier 2 or 3 city, you will see a QR code scanner to make payments digitally. That is the level of technology integration in India. And it's on us as dispute resolution service providers online, how we make it easy and convenient and accessible. But access to it is there. Access to technology is very much there, and it's there far more than there is access to law. And that is the angle with which we can see the entire debate and look at that how we can use that access and reach those people where courts are not able to reach. And even statistically speaking, to just conclude my thoughts on this, maximum number of cases that go to the Supreme Court are from the Delhi High Court in the Delhi region and not from anywhere else in India. Because do you expect somebody from Kerala, Maharashtra, or Andhra to travel every single time there is a day to Delhi and go to the Supreme Court and fight for justice? Most give up right there. But technology makes it central. Technology makes it available and accessible. And that's what I would like to say.
Truly, Ms. Namita, your point of the comparison between the access a person has towards the smartphone than the access they have towards the lawyers and the courts, it clarifies all the doubts on this particular subject. I believe my co-moderator, Ms. Diksha, would continue from here.
Yes. So, Ms. Namita, since pandemic has become a very important part of our lives, so my question basically deals with the pandemic, one door was shut while the other opened wide, at least for the legal fraternity. So, how has the pandemic benefited the services of ODR? But more importantly, has ODR as a service been on a hype train due to being the new kid on the block?
Let me put it this way, before the pandemic, legal tech was there, but it was more so like it's a good to have instead of a must have. Then came the pandemic, which changed everything, not just how people access legal services, but right from how people communicate to how they, interact with society to everything, how they utilize different services, how they make payments, every single thing changed, and legal was a part of that. So of course, even the entire legal space got a transformation because of the pandemic, and this happened not out of choice, but more so out of compulsion. But either way, it happened, and that time everything else had come to a standstill except for anything that somebody could do online from their home. And that was, there was a ODR telling people that, we've been telling you for so long, you can try it. Now people didn't have a choice, so they started trying it. So that migration from it being good to have to it being must have happened. Let me give you an example, but that is not unique to legal services. That is what I'm trying to say. Today many people who were averse to technology in many things, or who were averse to a model of, let's say, working from home, or who were averse to, transferring money online, did not have a choice. Similarly, you did not have a choice to even approach a court or do in-person proceedings. And then you looked at adapting your office, work, or home environment to making it online. And ODR, just like everything else, was a method of doing something online. So yes, it did get its own benefit as well.
Yeah, I totally get that this was one of the mechanism. But the second question that comes in my mind is that, is there an ideal world where in-person litigation and ODR can coexist? Or does one stand the test of time while the other would fade into oblivion? As we could sense that we are moving more into the technological era.
Sure. I think again that's a very interesting question, and this is not only specific to legal but across. You know, uh, I don't believe that there has to be one versus the other. There can always be one with the other, wherein 1 plus 1 would only then become 11. It is not that ODR is here to do away with in-person litigation, or do away with litigation altogether, or do away with meeting in person. No, of course not. There is a category that is apt for ODR, and there is a category for which in-person proceedings would only work best. There is a category for which only litigation would work. For example, there is a matter of national security. Of course, there would be an entire proceedings happening in person with a bench of judges, and that's where the best results would come out. But somebody who has to recover 1 lakh rupees from somebody may not necessarily require going to the Supreme Court and making the same bench of judges sit and do it for them. So that is the difference, where if you categorize types of disputes and look at what can be apt for ODR, resolve them with ODR. The other category, let it continue the way it continues. That would be an ideal mix that would give better results. It is similar for, if I talk about online payments also, for RTGS beyond a certain limit, you have to fill a physical form even till today. And you have to then submit that to court. But if you have to transfer 100 rupees to your friend, do you want to do the same hassle? Maybe not. So that's the thing, that entire bifurcation and responsibility of that lies on legal professionals like all of us here. And then it has to be weighed on what's benefiting that particular type of case and then decided. So to me, an ideal world would be one working with the other together, so that we don't have to listen to the whole Tariq pe Tariq situation for our country anymore.
So
That's a great answer.
so categorization and balance is the key. Ideal world with the parallel world itself.
Taking the baton from Ms. Diksha and going in the same direction. So as we have already understood that yes, they can coexist, but how would you describe the glaring differences in their respective approaches? Because the court system or the litigation system which India follows is an adversarial system. Like one party has to lose for the other to win. So how do you describe the differences in these two patterns, and how is it better for the emotion of the parties to the dispute?
Sure. So, I would not necessarily say that this is a difference between in-person proceedings and online proceedings. This is probably a difference between adjudicatory proceedings and non-adjudicatory proceedings. And that's, I think, where the beauty of mediation comes into the picture. Because even if it's arbitration, ultimately it would be that one party would be losing and one party would be winning. Because it's an arbitral award which is binding on both parties given by a third party. But when it comes to mediation, both parties together are working towards leaving the dispute behind and finding the optimal way forward, finding the next best way forward. The best way that they thought forward did not happen. That's why there was a dispute. So now what? What is the next best way forward? And that is the beauty of proceedings like mediation that come into the picture, and conciliation, where parties can explore and parties can decide for themselves how their own dispute should be resolved. And that, whether being done online or whether being done in person, I think is very party specific, because many people are comfortable discussing their life history online, and many people are not comfortable even saying a hi to somebody on WhatsApp. So that is still, so to say, party specific. But the idea is that there are always going to be people who embrace something and people who don't. So that difference will still be there. But, I do definitely feel that mediation as a tool for resolving disputes is very, very efficient and a mature way of doing it. And that is, we are seeing more acceptance for it also, even at a corporate level and even for family settlements. So on both spectrums, we are seeing increasing acceptance to that, especially when you weigh it with the alternatives that are available, which typically is litigating for years and years and years with no outcome in sight.
That's totally understandable, because given that mediation is a win-win situation, as they say, that's a good point that you have just made. But coming forward in this particular aspect only, when you said that arbitration is like bringing arbitration online would be the core work of an ODR platform. So do you think should an advocate be specifically trained for the sessions they take online, or do they have to follow a different approach when they were doing it in the offline hearings? Or like, what's the difference? How do a person differentiate between these two, doing the same
Sure.
process in the offline method and the online method?
Sure. So see, the overall proceedings remain the same. Okay, let me give you an example. Let me talk about a seminar versus a webinar. The essence of it remains the same, which is like it's a knowledge sharing session. Earlier, just that it was happening in a physical space, now it's happening in an online space. So that shift is of course required. And I do believe that yes, there is certain sort of specific training, but it's not that that training is, only available to those who are good with technology. No, there's nothing like that. In fact, we are three co-founders at Preserve 350, and none of us come from the tech background. We've learned technology along the way. So it was not that it is reserved only for engineers, because I've often heard this, that, okay, from the finance and law field, technology is so distant for most people from this field that they feel, how we just can't do it. If you know how to send a text to somebody on WhatsApp and do a video call on WhatsApp, that's pretty much all the skills you need to know to do a resolution online. Going forward, of course, you do need additional skill sets on how to communicate effectively online, how to make a party feel safe enough so that they can talk about, when you say that you move from what you want to why you want it in a mediation to understand the crux of the problem. Of course, those specializations are required, but that is not left to the purview of those who are good with technology. That is as accessible to everybody. And it's just that effort that you need to take to do it, but some sort of specialized training, yes, is required.
Totally understandable, given the point that you just raised about a person who knows how to type and how to communicate on the WhatsApp and use a video call. He can do pretty much a lot of it. But how much importance shall be laid on the practice of online ethics and communications? As we see in the offline mode, there are certain ethics and there are certain like a formal set of rules that are to be followed. So what do you say about these online ethics and communication techniques?
Sure. So it's just that, how you said that when you do something in person, there is certain etiquette and rules to follow. The same, you have to follow it, just with it being tweaked a little. Let me give you an example. Today, if you are doing a mediation session or a oral hearing in case of an arbitration, and parties are coming to your office, you will ensure that the office door is shut, there are proper chairs, and there's good lighting. It's the same thing that you do if you're doing it online. You ensure that there is good lighting, you ensure that there's no disturbance, your room is still locked, your office is still locked, and you ensure that your entire whole and soul focus and attention is to the party. So it is just a shift in mindset more than there is a specified training, so to say, because the rules of how to resolve a dispute typically remain constant. It has to be fair, it has to be independent, it has to be transparent. Those still apply. It's just that how you implement them. And yes, that difference will be there on, how you dress if you're doing it online, how your lighting should be, how your audio should be, how your video should be. But let me ask you one thing. Is it really that difficult? All of us today who are here already know all of these things, because that is a way of life now. We already know that we have to learn to speak looking at a screen. We know that we have to learn to talk about what we want by way of an email. And that's exactly the principles of digital communication that you use. It's just that here you're formally using a name called rules and etiquette, but you've already been doing that for the past 2 years. So it's just that itself.
Understood. Understood. Diksha, if you may continue.
Yeah. So, being a student myself, I'm more tilted towards knowing the aspects of ADR in colleges and what kind of training is required for students to be ahead of the curve in this sphere. Do we need instructions in technology and law towards the very start, or the usual ADR courses offered in colleges would suffice?
Sure. That's a very interesting question. Let me just answer that with another question, that if you are studying law, why do you need to do internships? Uh, it's
Yeah.
because you have to learn practically what the law says, right? It's
Yes.
exactly the same. You need to, go above and beyond what a textbook shows you to understand practically what it means. Because a textbook, of course, gives you a theoretical base, but to convert that to practical application, just like you do with any other subject, you do internships, you do some additional courses, you participate in moot courts, stuff like that. It's exactly the same that you need to do for ADR or ODR for that matter. As they say, practice and more practice. If you're a law student, so a couple years of your law school would have been done online, I believe. Moot courts still happened. It's just that they happened online. Internships also happened, just that they happened online. It's exactly the same. It's the effort and initiative that you take. There's always more to learn and there's always more to know. And I wouldn't say that any form of learning is ever enough. I believe that I'm also learning and I have to continue very dedicatedly spending and allotting some time to learn. The best part is that now all of these resources are available free of cost to all of us equally online. And there are some excellent courses available specifically on ODR, specifically on digital communication, specifically on empathy in an online world. If you just Google them, and they're brilliant. Learning should never stop. And I would say this for everything that you want to do in life, not just ODR. So I wouldn't say anything is enough. It's on how much you want to dedicate yourself to anything that you want to specialize in.
That was a very apt answer for like law students. So also there's one thing, when we move away from a physical setting, what is the extent of the impact on our understanding of body languages and reading parties? Are these practices to exercise the same level of understanding also in the ODR setting?
Sure. I think again a very relevant question. And I will say that yes, this is a bit of a challenge in the online space, especially when it comes to very emotion heavy mediation. See, when it comes to commercial matters, whether it's arbitration or mediation, it's fairly uncomplex in a way because it really does not involve as much emotion as it does economics. So it's about, monetary terms. But when it comes to family mediation, at that time, the level of emotions, of course, this is case specific, but generally, family cases have a lot more emotion in picture. And for somebody who practices resolving these kind of disputes online, has to have some additional knowledge on interpreting various things. Okay, let me give you an example. If I were doing a family mediation in office in person, as soon as somebody walks in the room, from their body language, from their expression, from their dressing, from their style of walking, I can gauge certain things. But when it comes to online, all you see is their face. And to gauge the same level of understanding of a person, seeing, just a 2 by 2 square inch of them becomes a tad bit harder. So that does require certain sort of specialized understanding. But that also we are learning, as humanity or as a generation itself, we are learning to understand people without talking in an online world. Let me give you an example. In the past couple years, especially when we were completely locked down, if you were speaking to your friend by looking at them on a video, you could in a way gauge, whether your friend is in a good mood or is upset about something or something like that. All of us have experienced it. That is nothing but training to become a good mediator. It's simply just that. It's just human emotion and understanding them. Earlier we all used to meet in person and it was easier. Now you're consciously trying to replicate that in an online world. And there are certain tactics that you need to be aware of, just like how you do when you communicate even with your family members. That you come to know there are good days and bad days. How? Nobody really told you or taught you how to do it, right? It's just experience, practice, all of that. So it's very similar in an online setting also. But of course, to train yourself professionally in understanding body language in an online setting would definitely help. And there are these trainings available. And this is not only specific to mediation. Even if you want to practice litigation, you want to practice a totally different career, this is just a life skill that I would say. So that is something that would require some sort of specialized training.
Yeah, we have, I think, resources for everything nowadays available online. Secondly, we also need to understand the group that ODR is impacting. So the next question particularly relates to that what is the major group of individual who choose to go for ODR, and which type of disputes would you recommend for ODR? But more importantly, which categories of disputes would you not recommend for ODR?
No, I think
Uh,
this is
I'm really sorry to cut you off, Namita, but before you just answer this question, I just want to like add another point to it. Like Diksha said, like what are the categories of dispute that ODR can handle? And nowadays we are even seeing criminal mediation happening, not in India, but I have like read certain reports where criminal mediation have also happened in third world countries, also first world countries such as US and all. So do you think that would also be possible in India as well? If you could include that in your answer as well.
sure. So, I'll put it this way that any long journey starts with a few steps. And, to directly jump a few steps and reach right ahead may make a lot of, milestones in the way kind of ineffective. So that is the first thing that I would like to say, that from a conceptual or theoretical perspective, there's no limit to what can be done online. Just like there's no limit to, it's just a mechanism. It's nothing new. It's nothing that, was not existing or something like that. Anything that you can resolve using ADR mechanism, you can resolve using ODR mechanisms, because ODR is nothing but ADR just being done in an online world. That's it. It's nothing new. It's not a novel way of resolving disputes where you have a robo judge saying some outcome. It's nothing, normally people think that, oh, that's what, no, it's not that. It's literally a step at a time. There probably may be a day where even that would happen, but for now it's a stepwise journey for people to start accepting, acknowledging, in fact even knowing about it. So what I believe, the initial places that are very apt for ODR right now are those disputes that result out of transactions being done online. Because if I am transacting online, A, I have an online presence. B, I'm used to it. C, I have a basic understanding or working knowledge of how to do things online. And that makes me absolutely an ideal person to resolve a dispute that I have completely online. So the example that I gave, like any e-commerce related dispute, any dispute where, let's say, for example, if I'm taking a credit card online today, I can take a loan in 10 seconds. Today, there are fintechs providing that. If there is a dispute resulting out of that, that can be resolved online, because there's already all of this validation of having access, having understanding, having knowledge. All of those things are already in picture because I am online. So these kind of disputes become very apt to be resolved online. And then, of course, parties that are in different locations, because for them to meet at a common point to resolve a dispute, again, that becomes extremely challenging. So again, parties who are different locations and who want to come online to resolve a dispute, again, a great place for ODR. MSME disputes, today small businesses, small companies, where do they go? They don't have the bandwidth to approach a lawyer, pay court fees, wait for 3, 5, 10, 15 years for an outcome from the court, then execute the award, all of that. For them, doing all of these solutions online make a lot of sense. Also, when it comes to, what, according to me, it's too soon for ODR. I would not say that you can't do it online. I'd just say it's too soon. Are, according to me, this is a personal opinion, but criminal matters. As you said, even in India, you can do criminal matters by way of a mediation. It's called plea bargaining. It is validated by law in India as well. But that is something, and especially doing that online would probably not be ideal right now, because we're still getting a hang of ODR generally at an overall level. So these kind of matters, then very complex matters where the outcome is involving public interest or national justice. These are again some sort of matters which I believe ODR may not be apt for. Then matters such as robberies, murders, all of these kind of matters, again, something that I don't believe ODR could provide the best solution at the moment for. And talking of fraud, again, something which I believe that right now ODR may not provide the best answer to these kind of disputes. But other categories of disputes, I think across, if parties are okay and comfortable with it, ODR provides a very effective solution to resolve their disputes.
what about the constitutional matters, like you were mentioning before, that we could
Yes.
utilize Supreme Courts and the wisdom of the judges in that particular thing? So like, is that a possibility in near future?
In the future, surely. In the near future, I'm not so sure, because these are matters that involve public policy and they are of national importance. So doing these kind of disputes currently online, it may not be represented by all parties who have a stake in the dispute, because not all of them
True.
would have access to technology in a way that they should have to resolve a dispute, and the outcome involves public at large. So these are still,
Correct.
some disputes for which ODR still needs to develop a little more, and there has to be a little more acceptance for it. Not that it can't. Theoretically, it
It
can.
will.
Yeah.
Surely it will.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank
yeah,
you
please
for
go ahead.
giving us a very idea for what ODR entails now in the near future. Also, with respect to the previous question, there's one further question. What are the most frequent concerns of these individuals when they start their respective journeys through ODR? And what are the answer to these common concerns if we are limiting the ambit to that?
Sure. Again, something that I've been asked left, right, center. The first and the foremost, which I'm sure all of you can guess, is confidentiality. How do you ensure confidentiality? Very interestingly, let's say I'll talk of a mediation. Okay. So in a mediation, there are parties who come to your office or wherever is the mediation room, and then they talk about all of the aspects that are worrying them, etc. All of that, and there is a inherent understanding that everything that they say will be confidential. Now, supposing I'm a mediator, and supposing you're a mediator and I'm a party, and I come with a bag, and I have this pen with me. It's in the bag. You have absolutely no idea. You discuss everything. If my intentions are otherwise, this could may as well be a very simple recording device in the pen. How are you ensuring confidentiality there? So that is exactly the point that we make, that it is party intention specific, not as such a mode of conducting the resolution specific. Because I understand in a mediation online, you can only see this much. You don't know what's happening around. Honestly, that's also the same thing when it comes to in-person proceedings. If somebody has a recording device in their bag, you're never going to know. If someone's intentions are malified, you're still not going to know. There are ways in which you can take care of it. Like, for example, the rules of the mediation institute ensure that if something like this happens, then there would be consequences and all of the other aspects. But there is not more risk to confidentiality than there is an in-person proceeding. Both are equally risky, although that percentage of risk is small. Both are equally risky. That's all I'm trying to say. That, another thing is security. Everybody says, what about security? You can hack into this, you can hack into that, etc. Today, physical papers are being destroyed if they are kept for years together in premises. What about that? That is one. Secondly, let me talk about security in a different way. Today, I assume majority of those of us who are present today have done at least one online transfer in our lives at a point in time. Most private and public banks have been hacked into. Your Aadhaar data is available online for as low as 50 rupees. You're still using those things, right? You have to wait with the convenience and the threat. The convenience is so high and the threat so little, it's probably worth taking the chance. It's like if you go by road, there is a chance you may meet with an accident and something may happen to you, but do you stop going on the road? It is exactly the same principle. There is a small chance. There's no denying that. There's no online system that's going to be 100% secure. But tell me one aspect of your life or of the physical world that is 100% secure. The answer is none. So it is equally risky, it is equally challenging, and it's equally, so to say, threatening. But that's where across the mode you choose. It's just that this, because it's unfamiliar with, it feels a little more scary, but your percentage of risk is the same through and through.
Understandable. I believe by now a person must be totally convinced to go with the process of ODR, and they must be on board with starting with the process of ODR. But the first question that will come to them, that will come from their side, would be that what exactly is the process of ODR and how do one goes about it? So how does one start? Where is that starting point for this?
Sure. Very interesting question. That to put it simply, it depends on when you go online, what do you do to buy a laptop? What do you do to consult your doctors online? Or what do you do to study online? And what do you do to use the internet for entertainment online? There are different ways. There is an app, you create an account, you register with it, you browse through what you like, and then you delve into it. An ODR platform is very similar. All you have to do is make an account, verify your identity. So the person knows that you are who you say you are in an online world, register your complaint, and then the process kicks off. It is similar to what happens in in-person proceedings. It's just that, let's say, there is a notice. Instead of there being a notice that is typed and then printed and then couriered, here that entire notice is generated digitally and it's communicated to all parties involved in a digital setting. After that, if there are sessions required, if there are other submissions to be done, whatever else is required, it's just that instead of it happening in person, it happens virtually. So like how we are meeting right now online, there are conferences and sessions conducted like this. There are oral hearings conducted like this. If you want to make submissions, you don't courier it to an advocate's house or an arbitrator's house or something like that. You simply email it or send it on WhatsApp or however it's communicated and decided between all the parties. Again, the arbitrator or the mediator, whoever the person is, would then recommend as to what the next step is. Ultimately, there'd be an outcome. You digitally sign it, and that concludes the proceeding. So it is nothing which is very fancy that, normally it feels like, oh, tech, it must be complicated. If there must be, this involved and there may be artificial intelligence and this. No, it's very simple. Of course, all of these tools are at play in the back end. But for a user, you just need to know it's as simple as ordering something from Amazon or Flipkart. It's just that, it's sort of like you're ordering a resolution. It's literally as simple as that. Register your dispute, talk about your problems, that's it. It will be taken care of from there. And that, of course, is the beauty of the ODR platform as well, as to how best they can deliver that resolution.
Very perfectly summed up, Namita, very perfectly summed up. We have talked a lot about from the consumer's perspective. Let's talk something about from your perspective as a co-founder of the ODR platform. So what are the most common difficulties you have faced when conducting one of these sessions? And like, would you blame ODR as a practice for the inefficiencies? Because let's admit there must be some inefficiency or there must be some disadvantages to this platform as well, or to the ODR in general as well. So what do you say? What are the problems that you encounter?
If you talk about problems and inefficiencies and disadvantages, I often say that we eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I've been used to all of that. But let me give you a very, an instance that actually happened with me. So I was in a conference for mediation. I was attending it, and there was somebody sitting next to me, and somebody started talking of mediation, the principles, what to do, and all of that. So the person sitting next to me asked me that, what is he talking about? I thought this was something on meditation. And that is the level of awareness today. Even if you Google, and you can try this, Google mediation, there'll be a small blue line below which will say that, did you mean meditation? So that is the level of awareness, and that is where you're trying to create something that too completely online. So the acceptance is still low. I do understand that, and I know that, and acknowledge that, that is the situation. But then that's what makes it exciting as well, because there's so much to be done, and there's so much opportunity available because it doesn't exist today. So that is one, the level of acceptance and awareness, because the first thing is people look at you only with doubt. Then it comes an entire process of letting them know that, this is legit, it's allowed by law, nothing is going to happen, you're safe. In fact, it will give you a level playing field, which otherwise is almost impossible to get in an in-person proceeding. This is verified, it will help you, and this is for you. So that is the biggest challenge that we face. And then, of course, when it comes to navigating certain aspects, because it's new, because it's different, the level of awareness is relatively low. It's like the next generation will by default browse online and shop online. But our generation or a little before had to learn how to do it. So it's similar for ODR as well. And, that is how the design is, because anything that's new requires learning and training at a mass level. But that is happening.
Wonderful. I totally understand the awareness is really a problem, but with many chief justices, not chief justice Ramana himself, but other Supreme Court judges like Justice Chandrachud pushing the agenda of ODR, I believe it will be it will be like very mainstream very soon. And I would like to have another question for you, which you may or may not choose to answer. So, do you have like any a memorable ODR session that could be that makes you think that that I'm ready to like give all my life to it? So any memorable ODR session that you will share with us?
every case that gets resolved reinstates that feeling. But let me tell you something that happened very initially where, we were still, I mean, I would say that every day is a struggle because there's so much more to do. But one of the early days where ODR was probably not even a coined term back then, when it was not so commonly accepted, even in a small community of lawyers, let's put it that way. We were trying to do a negotiation for somebody. It was an insurance claim settlement matter. And there was a lady, and she must be around 50 or 55, and she had lost her husband in a fatal accident. And she had three small kids and a loan, and she had no idea. She came from a very humble background, and we happened to get connected with her. We did an entire mediation for her and the insurance company online, and within 3 weeks, the amount came to her bank account. And I very clearly remember that day. She literally joined her hands and said, to us with tears in her eyes, that thank you for saving me. For that insurance company or for a professional, that was one case. But for her, that case was her entire life and her children's future. And when you see these results, when you see somebody not having to go through the brunt of a litigation, when you see a resolution, when you see that you can provide the next best way forward, I think that is very satisfying. And every mediation is like that in whichever form. It may not be about children and a wife, but no matter whether it's about a business or a family or anything else, every case that is resolved is everything that reinstates that, yes, this is what I want to do.
That's truly motivating that she got a claim within 3 weeks, and we don't know how much time it would have taken if she had taken the litigation way. But on this particular aspect only, like how do you as an ODR professional handle an emotional outburst that you are showing on a laptop? So how are emotionally tense situations handled when a natural party is not present physically with you, but on a screen, as we are seeing right now?
That's, I think, the beauty of somebody who practices communication online. Firstly, to reach a stage where somebody's comfortable enough to cry online is it in itself a huge skill. And that's also what teaches you how to manage that. In the pandemic, it probably may have happened to you where you're talking to somebody and there would be tears at a point in time, either in your eyes or in the other person's eyes. And how did you handle it? It's just that, it's just empathy in your mind as to how you operate as an individual is also what you do in an online world. And of course, there are certain specific skill sets, and there is an entire training module for that we do to ensure that anybody who's doing communication online, not necessarily during a mediation session, but even generally, understands that and is more open to how that can be handled. There are nuances, there is a lot of delicacy involved, but delicateness, sorry, involved. And I think that is similar even when you're doing it in person. How do you handle if somebody just starts crying next to you? It's similar, just a skill set that is acquired over time, but it is possible to do. That's all I'm saying. It is possible to do because it's possible to console your parent or a friend millions of miles away. So it's possible to even do that for a resolution. And sometimes, in fact, we've seen that, especially in family settlements, parties who don't want to see the other person come online to resolve it. And that time we've seen massive tears, but they feel more comfortable doing it online because the other person is not present in the room. And that happens. So it may not work every time for all types of cases, but it definitely works for when parties are open to it.
Thank you so much for those like personal inputs from your side. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
I believe Diksha, you may please continue with the next set of questions. And I would also request all the participants to send in their questions in the chat box if they have any, and we'll try to filter them out and put it to Ms. Namita over here. We're sorry we're troubling you with so much questions, but
no, I'm more than happy to answer them, and I know there are some on the chat box as well. I will answer all of them. Whoever can wait back, please do. Otherwise, you can always see the recording as well.
Thank you. Yeah, Diksha, you may continue.
Yeah, thank you. So after going through nitty-gritties of ODR and how the procedure is, I think we finally have reached a stage of agreement and both parties have enlarged the size of the pie. So the next question would be, what is the next step once an agreement has been reached? What is the credibility of an ODR agreement, and does it vary from an in-person settings to an extent?
Sure. So I think that's also similar to somebody who asked in a chat board that, what about an arbitral award? Are there challenges in relation to enforcement? So let me tell you this way, a settlement is a settlement. When you do it in person, it's not written that this settlement was done because proceedings were held in person. It's just a settlement agreement. Similarly, when it comes to the online space, a settlement agreement is still a settlement agreement. An arbitral award is still an arbitral award. It doesn't matter whether you do it in person or online. The mechanism to do it changes, of course. For example, when it comes to doing it online, you have to ensure that there is a proper digital signature affixed to it and not just a picture of a signature and those kind of aspects. But it's as acceptable as something that is done in person. Today even e-stamping is officially done in a very official manner completely online, and it has the same validity as if you were stamping the award or the agreement by way of physical stamp papers. So there is no difference. It's just that the nuances that you need to take care of, which are based on the IT Act and few other acts, have to be taken care of. Like there has to be a digital signature affixed. You note the IP from where it's signed and those kind of aspects. But from an enforcement perspective or any other perspective, it is the same. There is no difference just because something was done online vis-a-vis just because something was done in person. Just to give you an example of it, if you order food, with whether you go and pick it up or it comes to you, it's the same. The process is different, fees may be different. I mean, how much you pay for it may be different, but the food that comes to your house is the same. So it's similar to that. The settlement agreement is a settlement agreement. However you do it, however you arrived at it, that's on you.
Thank you for clarifying this. Also, can we take a defense, or we can say an exception of a technical error when the agreement is reached between the parties?
Can you take that defense specifically in what exactly
That
were you saying?
They were not able to hear the details of the matter properly.
God. Sure. So you're saying that if after somebody settles and agrees to a mediation, then changes their mind. I believe that's what you're asking. That tomorrow can somebody take defense that either they were not told about it or they did not hear the terms properly or something like that happened. But that's when your process comes into the picture. That is why an ODR platform is not just about emails and Zoom conferences. It is an entire proceeding that maps all of this. That is why you need a dedicated ODR platform. Otherwise, what is the difference in Zoom and emailing, details? But the platform takes care of all of these processes, takes care of all of these grievances that somebody may have and give opportunity again and again to ensure that all of this doesn't happen. And after that, then if somebody agrees, they cannot take these defenses. Because things like, for example, if there is emails that are going, it is tracked. When it was processed on the system, when it was delivered, when it was read, when it was opened, from which IP, all of those things. So then tomorrow, nobody can deny that. And if somebody wants to take defense, they can take that in in-person proceedings also, saying that, oh, I don't live at this address anymore, you couriered it to me, I did not get it. Then there is presumed delivery. So there are mechanisms like that even in the online space.
Okay, I have like another set of questions. Namita, we have seen like there are a certain set of lawyers only who don't like the idea of shifting the dispute resolution mechanism in online mode, and being with them for the past 2 months. Like even I have witnessed many people in my internship period, and others must have also witnessed it. There are like a section of lawyers who don't like this particular idea. So what do you say to like these people? Like is there a way to convince them, or is there a way that they will also like come across they will also like shift the mode to ODR, or like what is your like opinion, or what is your comments on them?
So, I relate to what you're saying. Well, I don't deny that, there are certain categories of people who would not, who would resist this and fight it tooth and nail. All they need to do is try it once. All we need to do is,
Right.
try and convince them to try it once by telling them that you have nothing to lose by trying it once. It's that, once you try the convenience of this, you are bound to come back to it. After that also, there may be still a category of people who wouldn't want to do it, and that's okay. There's enough and more for all of this to coexist, and that's how it should be also. People also should have an opportunity to do things in person, to do things online based on them, and there should be professionals across. But for those, we've also faced a lot of people who literally have, you know just said that this would never work, this would never work, this would never work. And I think now they see themselves that yes, probably this has some merit and has effectiveness and efficiencies, and they are also now coming forward to trying it. But of course, it's a lot of work needs to be done to ensure that kind of acceptance. And let me say that is across categories. It's not specific to ODR or the legal sector. Today there are people who still write a check. They will never, ever, ever do a transaction online, even if it is for 1,000 rupees. That's okay. It's their choice. A lot of them still do all of these transactions online. So there are efficiencies there.
Totally. I understand that. Thank you so much for being very frank on this particular issue. So what would be your personal pet peeve with the field of ODR at this very moment? And if you could, magically correct them, what would they be?
I think I've already answered that. It being awareness, because
Right.
in spite of it being recognized by different sectors, by government, by judiciary, by businesses, all of that, still in people's mind, this is like, oh, this is not legal. This is not legal. This is not legal. But that's not true at all. Law is encouraging the use of alternative mechanisms and the use of technology in alternative mechanisms. So that is number one. If I could magically correct it, it would be to let people know, what, court is your last resort, not your first resort to resolve disputes. That is one. And second is the integration of law with technology. As a law graduate, I've also pursued law. We are not told anything about technology in the formal education space. There's no topic only like technology. There's no use only of, even something as basic as a computer to do something in the entire curriculum. So if there was a way where technology could be integrated as a subject in the law students itself, that would definitely be game changing, because it's these law students who then go ahead, become counsel, work with judges, even represent companies, all of those things. And when they understand how technology can help the cause, I think that would definitely, help the entire cause of legal tech as well.
Thank you so much, Namisha. Thank you so much. Lastly, I think we are on the verge of concluding the session. We are very close to our time, and we have taken a lot of time from you as well. So, very lastly, what is next for you and for Presolve 360? What's next for you guys?
The next is just to build this, to ensure that ODR reaches every household and every nook and corner, where Parle-G has reached. We want ODR to reach there, because that is reached across households in India. That's the point. We want to make sure that everybody knows they have an equal opportunity at resolving their dispute and at access to justice by a simple phone. All they need to do is click a few buttons. They don't need legal background. They don't need technology background. It's a right it's a fundamental right. And we want to ensure that everybody gets that equal fundamental right in our country, so that we don't have ever a headline that even so many court cases are pending or anything like that. I would want to wake up to the times where that is not something that India has to battle.
I hope that the goal that you've set for yourself, you achieve the goal. Also, since we are running out of time, so would you like to end by saying something?
Oh, so yes, firstly, thank you for such a patient hearing and all these wonderful questions. All I want to say is it's already time to break free from the ordinary, or break free from what is considered to be traditional and normal, because every sector is revolutionized. When it comes to legal, that revolution has just started. And it is on the shoulders of all of you today, of all the young law graduates, to ensure that 21st century problems are addressed with 21st century solutions and not 19th century laws. And that, should be something that I believe is the responsibility of not just the judiciary or the legislative or the government or somebody else. It is the duty of every single person who decides to pursue law to ensure that that happens. And that is something that I want all of you to reflect over, that just because something was done in a particular way yesterday does not mean it has to be done that way tomorrow. So what is the best way forward in the 21st century? Give that a thought.
Wonderful, Namita. That's a wonderful answer. Really sorry to stretch it up further for 5 more minutes, but I
No
have
problem at
encountered
all.
two more questions which I believe
Yes.
are very crucial from the chat box. One of them is that if a person is not interested in litigation at all, would, starting with the ADR and giving like and not doing litigation at all, and starting with the ADR process, and particularly in the online mode, ODR process only, would that be a like a right way to go ahead with it? And second question is that how does pre-solve or like any other ODR platforms achieve affordability while other organizations and individuals pursuing the same goals, they charge higher than you, from what I can guess. So how do you guys achieve affordability and at least a good profit for yourself?
Sure. I think very relevant question. Sorry to stretch it by a few more minutes. I'll take the first one first. That when it comes to deciding your career path, I think that is something that you yourself need to be focused on and decide for yourself. If you're talking from an opportunity perspective, there is no doubt about it that ADR and ODR are here to stay. There's no doubt about it that that is becoming more and more acceptable, and it is going to become more and more normal. I understand that it is nascent today. There's no denying about that, but that is the beauty of it. Today, litigation is already a very crowded space and it's already happening the way it is. If you choose to do this and if you choose to specialize in technology in resolving disputes, there's going to be very few of you, and that's what is going to make you more attractable to any organization that you choose to go in, because that doesn't exist otherwise. Today, even people who we work with, or where the background that we came from, academically speaking, we did not have knowledge about ADR, working knowledge about ADR or technology or ODR at all. But you do have that option to become one of those few to become category creators, because there's no doubt about it, this is here to stay. Even if you look at a global landscape or the Indian landscape, especially with the push from the NITI Aayog, from the government, judiciary, everything, this is what is the next big thing. So it's on you whether you want to be part of it before it happens or forced to get into it after it happens. So if you choose to do this, you're going to be one of those very few, and that is what is going to make you a very attractive resource to an organization. That is a way to look at it. Of course, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy because the openings for traditional litigation practices are going to be way more than this. But that's where you taking that extra effort of doing all of these courses or doing these kind of internships or learning more about it and specializing in it will actually help. So these are my thoughts on that. And when it comes to the second aspect of how do you make it affordable, I think that's where technology plays a role. When others are charging much higher, today the level of automation that an ODR platform, of course, Resolve also has is that is the essence of it, to ensure that it's accessible and affordable. Today the entire UPI system is free of cost. They did manage to do it. It's like that. And when you use technology effectively, your administrative cost, your resource outflow, you can considerably curb it because of what technology can do for you. That is one reason. Secondly, as a platform provider, we've built this for scale. So as we scale, the costs become even cheaper for us because it's built like that. The entire model is like that, and that's how we are able to be more affordable. And honestly, that's the goal at Resolve. It should not be left only for those who have money to get justice. You just, that's not what we want to build. We want to build an organization, as I said in the start, that makes access to justice available to every household. And for that, we have to be mindful of our costs and the cost of what we offer as well. And that's where technology helps to ensure that quality is never compromised. So that's how we take care of that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Namita. On behalf of the Center for Mediation and Conciliation and the CADR, RGNUL, the whole managing crew and the audience, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to you for gracing us with your ingenious knowledge and experience. We are enthralled to be a part of this session, and I wish there were less time constraints so that we could even continue with some more questions. But that's a lot for today, and I believe you have given a lot of fodder to everyone to think upon, and maybe become more aware about this particular field. So we would also like to thank the attendees for their amazing enthusiasm for the series. And after doing our best to answer all the participants and our own questions, we would like to call this session to a close. We hope that you all have enjoyed this session and were able to derive helpful knowledge out of it. I'm sure the audiences would agree with me when I say that your expertise and insights in the niche field of ODR is something which we are all are in awe of. On this note, we conclude this session and look forward to meet all our participants on next Saturday for our fifth session. on how to negotiate for your client. So till then, a big thank you to everyone for joining this session. Stay safe, stay happy. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much for having me and for such kind words. I hope I could share a little bit of what I've learned. But if any of you have any more questions, want to discuss anything or get in touch, my email ID is namita@presolve360.com, NAMITA@presolv360.com, or LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out, and I'll personally reply to every email and every LinkedIn message as well. So I'll be more than happy to brainstorm. I absolutely love this. So anytime, please do feel free to reach out, and all the very best to everybody. And again, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
So
Namita.
much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, everyone. You too, Namita.
Thank you.